Hello, you're tuning in to check out 4-2A, talking about ratio tables. So let's look at one of the first examples. We've got this first one here where it talks about icing the cake and using 6 drops of yellow food coloring for every 1 cup of icing. That's represented here in our table. 1 cup of icing, 6 drops of yellow. Now, the question asks how much yellow food coloring should we mix with 5 cups of white icing to get the same shade. So, thinking of a ratio, if we're going to go from 1 cup to 5 cups, we need to go up, so we're going to multiply. In this case, to get from 1 to 5, we need to multiply by 5. And since we're looking for equivalent ratios, we know we're going to do the same thing to the bottom. So we take our 6, we multiply by 5, which would give us 30. Okay. So that's essentially the most basic type of ratio table we would have. You're either going to multiply or divide to either go up or down with your numbers, and that's going to change your ratio down here as well. So we talked about check your progress A in class. You should have realized that you're going to multiply 1 times 4. It gives you 4, so you would do 8 times 4, which would give you 32. All right. So in this case, the patient gets 4 liters in 32 hours of care. This problem here is just like our first one, but you'll notice instead of going from one column to another column, we've got kind of an in-between. So we need to do a little bit more thinking. In this case, it talks about Joey Chestnut, the hot dog eater, and he ate 66 hot dogs in 12 minutes. And we want to figure out how many hot dogs he would eat in 2. Now, some of us are pretty good with math, and we know we can go straight from 12 to 2. But in this case, it wants us to find this in between. So, we're going to think, going from 12 to 2, are we going to multiply or divide? In this case, we're dividing. So, we need to think, what are we going to divide 12 by to get down towards 2? Well, we can start with 2. So, if we do 12 divided by 2, it would give us 6. And then we can take that 6 and we can divide it again, and we will get down to 2. And remember, if we do the same thing to the top and the bottoms, because we're looking at equivalent ratios, same thing here, divide by 2, because we divided by 2 here. So 66 divided by 2 gives us 33. And then we're going to divide by 3, just like we did on the bottom here. So 33 divided by 3 gives us 11. And that tells us that in 2 minutes, he ate 11 hot dogs. So looking at our check your progress, to make cranberry jam, you need 12 cups of sugar for every 16 cups of cranberries. So we've got 12 over 16, and we're going to try to get this 16 down to 4. So, just like before we talked about up here, 16 down to 4, we're going to divide. So in this case, to jump to here, we're going to divide by, we can pick a number that'll get us in between. 4 would get us all the way down, so let's use 2. 16 divided by 2 gives me 8, which means this divided by 2 would give me 4. Got to do the same thing top and bottom, so I would do 12 divided by 2, which gives me 6, and then I would do 6 divided by 2, which gives me 3. And it tells me that if I want to make 4 cups of cranberry jam, or if I'm going to use 4 cups of cranberries, I'm going to need my 3 cups of sugar to solve it. Okay? So, most of you guys had a pretty good grasp on that in class. Alright, the last one, scaling. These ones are a little bit more difficult because you need to start thinking of factors that'll go into both the number you're starting with and the number you're trying to end with. So, here we have cans of corn are on sale, 10 for $4, find the cost of 15 cans. Well, if I'm thinking about this, the past ones we did, I either just multiplied or divided this original number and it got me to where I need it. But if I'm using 10 times 2 would give me 20, which is too much. I'm going bigger, so I know I'm not dividing. So what I'm going to have to do is I have to go backwards a step to a multiple or a factor of this 15 and 10. In this case, it's going to be 5. So I'm going to do 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2, because I'm going to do the same thing top and bottom to keep that ratio equivalent. And I end up with 5 over 2. I have 5 cans of corn, cost $2. Now that I have this 5, I know I can get 5 to 15. So 5 times 3, because I'm going up, gives me 15. Do the same thing on the bottom like I did at the top. 2 times 3 is 6. Gives me 6. So I know that if I'm going to buy 15 cans of corn, it's going to cost me $6. So that's how we use the scaling. You need to look at this number, your original number, along with the number you're trying to end with, and think about what factor will go into both of these. So you're going to work backwards down to here and then back up to this number. Alright, for our homework problems, or classwork problems / homework problems, we're going to look at number 7 off of page 216. Now, this problem, before leaving to visit Mexico, Levant traded 270 American dollars and received 3,000 American pesos. When he returned from Mexico, he had 100 pesos left. How much will he receive when he exchanges those pesos for dollars? So, here's the beginning. He traded 270 US dollars and he had 3,000 pesos. Now, we're going to go from 3,000 down to 100 and work our way to there with a jump in between. So, my first step is I'm going to try to get this 3,000 down to 1,000. Okay? So, if I need to get from 3,000 to 1,000, I'm going to divide, and in this case, I'm going to divide by 3. So, I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to take 270. I need to divide it by 3. So, 270 divided by 3. Well, 3 goes into 27, 9 times, left over, 0, and I have the 0 there. So it's going to be 90. So if I had 1,000 pesos, that would be worth $90. So now we're going to go from 1,000 down to 100. So again, I'm going down in numbers, so I'm going to divide. In this case, 1,000, to get to 100, we have to divide that by 10. So we're going to do the same thing at the top. 90 divided by 10 will give us 9. So, if when Levant got home and he had 100 pesos left and he went to trade it back for US dollars, he would have 9 US dollars left. And that's what he would get back. Alright, here we're going to look at number 10. I know these scaling ones are a little more difficult, so if a hummingbird were to get all of its food from a feeder, then a 16-ounce nectar feeder could feed about 80 hummingbirds a day. How many hummingbirds would you expect to be able to feed with a 12-ounce feeder? So we've got our beginning part of our problem. We have 16 ounces, and it feeds 80 birds. We want to figure out a 12-ounce thing. So we need 16 and 12 factors of those two. Well, 16, you've got 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. 12, you've got 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. So 4 is going to be that factor that's going to be in both of these. Now I could use 2, because I can divide 80 by 2 and get it down to a number 2. Take 16 and divide it by 8, which would give me 2, and then 80 divided by 8, which would give me 10. That would work too. Or I could use 4. Either one of those would be a valid way to get to what we're trying to find here. Let's use 4. So let's divide by, in this case, 4. So 16 divided by 4 is going to give me 4. I divide it by 4 in my jump. So I'm going to do the same thing down here. Divide by 4. 80 divided by 4 is going to give me 20. Because I know 4 times 2 is 8. Add that 0 on it, it's going to give me 20. So now, to get from 4 to 12, I'm going to multiply now. So I'm going to multiply by 3. I'm going to do the same thing down here, times 3. So I need to take 20 times 3. Again, thinking of multiples of 10, 3 times 2 is 6. So I add the 0 on, I'm going to end up with 60. So in this case, a 12-ounce hummingbird, 12 ounces of nectar will feed about 60 hummingbirds a day. And then these last sets of problems are the same types of problems. The only thing they're doing is they're just words. There's no table set up for you to figure it out. So you've got to read the words to figure out what you're trying to find. So let's look at number 14. On a typical day, flights at a local airport arrive at a rate of 10 every 15 minutes. So that's where we create our own table. We've got minutes and we have flights. And we know that for every 15 minutes, we have about 10 flights that come in. And then it says, at this rate, how many flights would you expect to arrive in an hour? So we're trying to figure out how many planes are going to come in 1 hour's worth of time. So we know that how many minutes are in an hour? 60. So we're going to change the top part of our table from 15. We need to get to 60. So since my number 15 is getting bigger, I know I'm going to multiply. So what am I going to multiply by? That's right, 4. So I should be multiplying by 4. Do the same thing to the bottom. Multiply by 4. 10 times 4 gives me 40, which means in an hour's worth of time, they should have 40 flights landing at the airport. Alright, so it's the same type of problem you had before. The only difference, they're not starting you with the table, you've got to create it on your own. Alright, and then the last set, you had number 19, 20, and 21 as your homework problems. Now these are NGSS practice, which means these are FCAT type questions. So these are the type of things you're going to see in a few months when you take FCAT. Let's look at just number 19. It says, Leo buys 5 DVDs for $60. At this rate, how much would he pay for 3? So this is another one of those scaling problems, because I can't go from 5 to 3 exactly without going a step in between to kind of use a factor. So we're going to have DVDs and say money, because that's what they are. And we have 5 over 60. Alright, we're trying to get to 3. So, easiest thing, if I'm thinking of factors of 5 and 3, they're both prime numbers. So the only factors they have is 5 has 1 and 5, 3 has 1 and 3. So meaning I need to have a 1 here. So to get from 5 to 1, that's where I'm going to divide by 5. So I'm going to do the same thing down here. I need to do 60 divided by 5. So 60 divided by 5 is going to give 12. So each DVD here costs $12. And that's where I'm now going to go back up. So I'm going to times. 1 times 3 gives me 3. I need to do the same thing down here. Times 3. So 12 times 3 is going to give me 12, 24, 36. So that's going to tell me that 3 DVDs cost $36. My best answer choice would be C. Alright, so just think about these. The hardest part really is looking at these numbers and figuring out what you're either going to multiply or divide by. That's where you're going to have those multiplication facts down so you can really look at it and just go, okay, 5 to 1, I'm dividing by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay, 60 divided by 5 is 12. I gotta get from 12 times 3. 12 times 3 is 36. Alright? So just that thinking is going to help you out with figuring out whether you're going up and down and how much you need to go up and down by. And then the other important thing to remember is make sure whatever you do to the top, you do the same thing to the bottom to keep these ratios equivalent to each other. If you have any questions, see me in class and I'll try to get you on the right path. Good luck. Good night.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.